Σύμφωνα με τη θεωρία των αεροψεκασμών, υπάρχει λόγος που ο παγκόσμιος πληθυσμός είναι τόσο δεκτικός στα μέτρα της νέας τάξης. Μας ψεκάζουν με χημικά. Τα μεγάλα κεφάλια της παγκόσμιας κυβέρνησης αποφάσισαν να ταΐσουν όλο τον κόσμο ένα είδος νευροτοξίνης που με κάποιο τρόπο μπαίνει στο μυαλό μας και μας κάνει πράους, υποταγμένους και συνεργάσιμους. Και ο καλύτερος τρόπος για να εξαπλώσουν αυτή τη νευροτοξίνη είναι να την ψεκάζουν στην ατμόσφαιρα για δεκαετίες χρησιμοποιώντας επιβατικά αεροπλάνα από διάφορες αερογραμμές. Ακριβώς, φίλοι και φίλες. Η άσπρη γραμμή που βλέπετε να βγαίνει πίσω από ένα αεροπλάνο δεν είναι καυσαέρια, είναι χημικοί αεροψεκασμοί. Είναι chemtrails.
Aerosol geoengineering looks like it is so cheap that the cost is basically not going to be an issue. That means that implementation decisions will be risk-to-risk decisions. The risk of doing it against the risk of not doing it. And it makes the problem of how we govern it fundamentally harder and different and novel. So I've told you that it's cheap to deliver materials to the stratosphere, and I'm convinced that's true. I don't think that will change. But I think the more we do research, the less easy this will look, the more complicated the environmental effects will look. And that's a good thing, because right now it looks too easy. So I think that if we do more research, we're likely to find out that it's harder and more complicated than we thought, and that the side effects are harder to manage, and that's a healthy outcome that will make it easier to do the management. Of course, the opposite reaction is possible. It's an empirical question how people will actually react to knowledge about this. Another reaction is to say, if these crazy scientists are so concerned about putting CO2 in the atmosphere, they want to think about these things, then that might actually mean we should be more serious about the risks of CO2 in the atmosphere. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids.
Numerous air quality studies, including from CARB, California Air Quality Resource Board, have named submicron-sized particulates as being particularly harmful for human respiration. Through all the discussions today, I have not heard any mention of this fallout, and has this been studied, and also the effects of a highly reactive metal like aluminum on toxifying soils and waters?
The question is, what would be the effects of these materials on human health if they came down into the stratosphere, in particular small particles and aluminum?
Αλλά έστω ότι ουρά είναι όντως ψεκασμένα χημικά για mind control. Μπορούν αυτά τα χημικά να φτάσουν από το αεροπλάνο στους πνευμονές μας? Ή δύσκολα. Τα αεροπλάνα αρχίζουν και βγάζουν ουρές από τα 8.000 μέτρα και πάνω. Σε αυτά τα υψόμετρα είναι ρουτίνα να πετάς παρέα με ανέμους 150 χιλιόμετρων την ώρα και βάλε. Άρα, ό,τι ψεκάσει εκεί πάνω, κατά πάσα πιθανότητα θα παρασυρθεί από τον αέρα και θα καταλήξει στον ωκεανό. Γι' αυτό και οι αγρότες που ψεκάζουν φυτοφάρμακα δεν λένε στον πιλότο να ανέβει 8.000 μέτρα πάνω από το χωράφι. Αλλά πάλι έστω ότι το σπρέι πέφτει εκεί που πρέπει να πέσει. Το πρόβλημα είναι ότι μέχρι να πέσει έχει διαλυθεί τόσο πολύ στην ατμόσφαιρα που η δόση που παίρνει τελικά είναι πολύ μικρή για να έχει οποιοδήποτε αποτέλεσμα. Δοκίμασέ το και μόνος. Την επόμενη φορά που θα έχεις βουλωμένη μύτη, ψέκασε ένα ολόκληρο τρισαλίνα από τον μπαλκόνι, κατέβα κάτω, πάρε βαθιές ανάσες και δες αν θα κάνει διαφορά.
We assume the particulates are descending, and we have the tests to prove that we are being inundated with levels of aluminum and particulates that are literally tens of thousands of times what would already be considered high. So we're not talking about exposure to a slight percentage higher of these toxic materials. We're talking about quantities, for example, off the side of Mount Shasta. If you can pan back, that's a landmark in Northern California, considered to be a pristine water source. Aluminum or snow sample off the side of Mount Shasta tested 61,000 parts per billion.
This is just ordinary snow water, and people are drinking this stuff when they're hiking on the mountain. And remember, government action is required at 1,000. This is 61 times over the government limit, and our hikers are drinking this poisonous water on Mount Shasta Mountain itself. Barium, 83. Strontium, 380.
Why is this being allowed to be sprayed continually all over the United States, all over the world? Who is paying for this? I mean, the incidence of Alzheimer's has just skyrocketed, which evidently has to do with an accumulation of aluminum in the brain cells. I mean, I think almost every family has been touched by a member as they get older having Alzheimer's.
Ας δούμε αρχικά γιατί όλα αυτά δεν βγάζουν νόημα από φυσική άποψη. Η κλασική ουρά που αφήνει πίσω το ένα αεροπλάνο λέγεται ίχνος συμπίκνωσης. Αποτελείται κυρίως από σταγονίδια νερού που περιέχονται στα καυσαέρια και παγώνουν σε μικρά κρυσταλλάκια μόλις έρθουν σε επαφή με την ατμόσφαιρα. Ο σχηματισμός αυτών των κρυστάλλων εξαρτάται από πολλούς παράγοντες, όπως το υψόμετρο, τα συστατικά του καυσίμου, η ατμοσφαιρική πίεση ή η διαφορά θερμοκρασίας καυσαερίου και ατμόσφαιρας. Γι' αυτό και το σχήμα, η διάρκεια και η απόσταση του ίχνους από το αεροπλάνο διαφέρουν από πτήση σε πτήση.
I've been watching jets all my life, and I know about jet contrails. I've watched them. They're vaporized moisture, ice crystals, and they get out there in the atmosphere, and then they effervesce and evaporate and then disappear, and you can see them. The plane moves along, and the little white trail follows right behind it, and usually about 10 or 20 lengths of the plane, or thereabouts, and then it's gone. And you can still see them that way, by the way, once in a while. So there goes a contrail. These other things we're talking about are not at all the same phenomena at all. These planes go by, and they billow out this white smoke, and it covers the sky from horizon to horizon. It doesn't dissipate at all. And they crisscross each other, and you see this thing cover the sky and turn it milky, and then people start having trouble breathing, and then you hear stories about the aluminum and barium deposits that they're picking up in the red.
And this is what concerns me, this kind of stuff right here. It's just soft. Okay. This just comes right off, this bark. That's not natural. For I've seen hundreds of thousands of coconuts, and I've never seen it falling apart like that. Look at this, you guys. I've never seen anything like this. I used to trim trees all the time in Big Island. I've never seen anything like that. That's why I'm... And the thing is that they're doing it every day here, every day. So it's hammering, 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 micro doses every day. And then, of course, it's getting in the environment, and of course, it's weakening the plants. And it takes a couple years for this to actually weaken the plant. So we're asking for GMO taro. We're asking for GMO papaya because we can't grow our natural seeds. We can't be sustainable. We can't truly, be here as God created us to be.
So my friend convinced me to do a hair analysis on my daughter. So we went ahead and cut close to her scalp and got some really recently grown hair and sent it in. I was just sure that my daughter's hair was going to be so clean with the lifestyle that we live. And lo and behold, it came back and her levels were really high in aluminum. This is the chart here. This is the reference range, and this is where my daughter is. 23.1. Aluminum. The skies are covered.